Hello.
Hey Andy, how's things?
Yeah, it's all right. Just a little bit of finger trouble there.
Understand completely. As long as it still works on the guitar, that's the main thing.
Yeah, technology. Hey.
It's overrated.
It must be late for you then.
No, it is only 6 p.m. on a Friday night, quite early.
Oh, are you on the West Coast then?
I'm on the east, so I'm in Brisbane.
Oh, are you?
Yeah,
I'd have thought you'd have been further time wise out there. Yeah. I mean, we're coming to Brisbane soon.
you
So,
are. In November, you actually got three shows in Queensland. You've got Airlie Beach,
right.
you've got Toowoomba, and you've got Brisbane. And the Brisbane venue is stunning. You'll absolutely love it.
Yeah, I think I've played there before. I can't remember. The last time I was out there was with Suzi Quatro.
Yeah,
And I think we might have played that or the Q Pack, one or the other. So
yeah. I think you played the one in Toowoomba.
yes, we did.
Yeah, the Empire Theatre, and you probably
That,
played
that
QPAC.
that's like an old Art Deco place, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah, and the
Yeah,
Princess
lovely.
Theatre is much
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And Susie will be playing the same venue in Toowoomba when she's back early next year as well.
All right. I'll have to tell her we've pulled our socks up and we're catching her up then.
Yeah, she she's non-stop. She was only here
Exactly.
earlier this year.
Listen, I've had her in the studio, mate, and she is a workaholic and a dream to work with because it's not a matter of would you mind trying this? It's try it again,
Yeah,
and she'll do it and do it until well we're both happy, and I love it. But it doesn't take long, I have to say. There's a lot of pre studio stuff that goes on with us. So yeah,
yeah. And look, she does a 6 minute bass solo live and doesn't make it boring. Come on.
yeah, exactly.
But the suite, 9 shows in November, the farewell tour, you know, lots of bands say they're doing a farewell tour. Is this your farewell tour?
Um, I would not like to think so ultimately, but touring maybe.
Yeah.
Um, we had the rock the boat thing in place, and then
Yep.
somebody came out of the woodwork and basically said, "Well, you could carry on and do a tour," which I thought that's the most logical thing. I've been on a 24-hour flight. Why am I going home? I might as well kind of make the most of it. Now, my health um, has been a little bit up and down since I got my prostate cancer, but at the moment I'm feeling pretty good. I get extremely tired. I couldn't even tell you how tired I can get. The fatigue of basically not doing much.
Yep.
So I've just got to look after myself, and I know we're coming into the period where it's going to start getting warmer.
Yeah.
So my first thing is I want an air conditioned car, hotel, and I want a decent seat on an aircraft when we travel. It's those things that are just as important as the venue and the nobody's as important as the audience, of course, but if you get those things right, the show usually goes brilliantly because you're feeling good.
Yeah. Well, I would have thought that with what you've given the world in terms of music, a good seat on a plane and some air conditioning isn't too much to ask for.
No, it's not. And at the moment, because I'm having not trouble, but I'm 75. In fact, I've just turned 75. And I went to my dentist yesterday, and she said, "Well, these are in better nick than I was expecting, but I don't want to be eating steak anymore."
Okay. So no steak on the riders. Let's keep it simple.
Yeah, or toffee.
And I probably haven't had toffee since I was a kid. So,
Yeah,
you know,
but you don't want anything that you have to chew hard or stick
yeah.
or will stick.
Now, a quick little scan of Spotify. You've got Fox on the Run, you've got Ballroom that are both over 100,000 streams each. Um, you know, far more wide reaching than that service alone. But is there a song in your career that you wrote that you're like, I can't believe that didn't take off?
Um, there's been a couple really. I can't believe, for example, we just turned into a three-piece after Brian Connolly had left the band in 1979, and we released the album Cut Above the Rest. The album didn't do too bad, but there was a song on there. I can't remember which song they picked as a single off that album, but there was a song on there called Mother Earth, and it was, for me, it was another Love Is Like Oxygen. You know, it had that sort of progressive, but yet still had commerciality, you know, and I can't even believe the record company didn't even consider it as a single. So there's, you know, there are some along there. The other one, I guess, is there's a song called Lost Angels that appeared on the Off the Record album. Once again, I felt that was kind of coming on the back of we just made the heavy metal album, which was really heavy and strong, and we had some songs left over, and this was like the opening track for the Off the Record album, and it did okay in some territories in Europe. It never got one play, I don't think, in the UK, and I'm not even sure whether it was even released in Australia. So yes, there are a couple of tracks out there, but in the main, I've learned, and it was pushed into my brain when I was growing up, don't complain about things that didn't happen, just move on and make it happen the next time.
Sure, but that it is called, unfortunately, the music business for a reason, and sometimes the business gets in the way of good music.
Well, the business always gets in the way. I think sometimes, God, if only we could all go back to our time when we first picked up the guitar and were playing to a couple of dozen people in a youth club, and they were really enjoying it. You were enjoying yourself. You couldn't play that well, but that was the catalyst. That was the spark that got you going. I mean, have you seen the Beatles film, the 8 Days a Week?
No, I've seen Get Back.
All right. Well, the latest one that was done by Ron Howard, it's got to be a watch, because that tells you what they went through. And I'm talking about serious stuff here on the road. It's the tale of why they ended up not going on the road anymore and making Sergeant Pepper, you know, and I can see it from when they started, and really, even though they're all sleeping in one room in Hamburg, you know, when they were doing the pre-success period, those are the moments that keep coming back into your mind, and I have that flashback with the original band. I imagine myself, but I mean, I was 6 months into the band and we were having big hits, and you know, but it's that 6 months leading up to that cements the relationship and how everybody is going to get on and get together and how it's going to work, and then all of a sudden you've got people saying, right, well, we want 10% of that and we want this, and all of a sudden you start thinking, I don't want to sit in these meetings. I just want to write some songs and I just want to play a bit, you know? Yeah,
look, as a kid of the 70s that, you know, used to relish in buying 45s. Now I'm so grateful for bands like The Sweet that still put on a show. And what I mean by putting on a show is it doesn't matter that there's big giant video screens behind. It's on the stage, amps up to 10. You're probably going to hear, you know, no offense, you might hear a mistake because that's a live band. And that's, I would rather hear, you know, someone hit a bad note and have a little giggle to himself on stage than look at a big giant video screen any day of the week. So I'm grateful that we still have bands like that.
I'm with you, but part of the problem when you go to some of these big concerts, you're so far away. You're not even sure what you're hearing anymore. And as you said, it's more of a stage show than a gig. You know, especially all the solo artists. I don't want to decry anybody, but I think Dave Grohl's come out and started to, you know, have a little bit of a say about what he thinks is going on. But there will always be many methods of how to, you know, do things, you know, and I think we are there. I can't believe the kind of um, collaborations that I've seen recently between them, and you go, how did that happen?
Yeah.
You know, but the results can be quite different and stunning. You know, it also shows you that when the film A Star Is Born, Lady Gaga, she's no one trick pony. You know, it's yeah, it's fantastic stuff. You know, but you know. But I come from the era where what you said, you plug your guitar in and you play, you know.
Look at Lady Gaga's collaboration with Metallica.
Yeah.
You know, that proves she can do it. She's probably the last of the generation to me that gets up. Oh, and Pink too for me. Pink can hold her own. But all right, so with a career as big as yours and as long as yours, set lists, is it a stock set list, or do you like to throw a couple of weird ones out just for yourself?
There's a bit of that goes on. Every time we release a new track, while it's fresh, we usually throw one of those in. But generally, the start and the finish kind of writes itself. You know, to get it kicked off. And we've been playing 1 3/4 hour shows, depending on how much we chat as well. But I guess it'll be a similar idea when we come down to ours. But there is another track that was a #1 in Australia that was not released as a single anywhere else in the world, and that's the old Joey D Peppermint Twist. So
lovely.
That will go into the set. Also, I don't want to reveal too much, but the guys in my band are quite very together guys, and I take a little break in the middle, and it's such a surprise what they perform that I don't want to spoil it, but it's one of those moments, you know, and you see the audience kind of go like that. They weren't expecting it, you know.
Excellent. Well, as a music photographer as well, I hope they let us back in the photo pit for that little portion.
Well, I think that you should come backstage and say hello, all that kind of thing. You know?
I will be there. I will be there. Now, I've got to ask a question about guitars. So, what's your favorite that you're playing at the moment? But what's the most favorite guitar you've ever owned?
Well, let's start with the most favorite guitar I've ever owned. It took all my money, and it was £100. My brother and I traveled to Manchester because I'd heard we'd seen one in an advert, and I thought, oh, that's going to be gone by the time we get there. Remember, no internet, no, everything was done by phone. And I said, look, we're definitely coming. And when I got there, it wasn't £100, it was £110. And back then, in the late 60s, 68, you tried talking somebody down £10.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like $100 now.
Yeah, he was 105. Yeah, you can have it. My 335. This is my Gibson 335 from the early 60s, and they'd had a storeroom fire, so the story goes, and they'd put two guitars together from one. But I don't think that's what happened. It's just that they assumed when the guitar came back into the store, that's what had happened, because it's got 2 serial numbers. It's got one on the headstock and one inside. And somebody did a lot of research on my guitar and put it in a book. And he said, I don't think that's exactly what happened. And he even traced the guy who owned the store to his place where he'd retired to in North Wales. And I was talking to him about, was this, and he said, well, we did have a store fire, but he said, I don't remember anything getting damaged, you know, badly. But he said, it could have happened. But he said, we've had these guitars before where they've had 2 serial numbers. So I thought, right, okay, well, we're now getting there. And my brother and I, how old was I? I would have been 18. I'm standing there going, if you take our last £5, we don't get a sandwich and we don't get the train home. And he was trying to say, well, you can have that other guitar for £100. And I said, no, this is what I want. And he'd heard of our band, the Elastic Band, thank God. And in the end, he just relented and said, okay, don't tell anybody. And then I said, it does come with a case, doesn't it?
Great.
And he said, it comes with a non-original case. So we were able to take it home on the train and still have something to eat, getting back across to North Wales where I lived at the time. And so that's got to be the guitar. It's also got so many oddball things on it. It's got a Bigsby that when the guy was doing the research on my guitar, he said, it's the wrong Bigsby, but he said it's also got a little like extra screw on it. And he said, I have no idea what that was for. But he said it's the kind of Bigsby that you should have fitted on a Telecaster, not a 335, which meant that the tremolo arm sticks up a bit. Now, I've looked at pictures and talked to Richie Blackmore, and it's the same kind of 335 with that solid body Bigsby on it.
Right.
So that's the favorite. The one I'm playing at the moment was bought in Australia, in Melbourne, in the early 80s. It's a Japanese Fender, and it was the first of the Squires, called the Fender Squire. And it's Fiesta Red. And the guy in Melbourne was a very together guy, and he fitted he knew I talked to him about having tuning problems and keeping, because I like to use the tremolo arm, trying to keep it all in tune. And he said, well, they've just brought out these bridges, Kayla. He's an engineer, and he said it works brilliantly. So he fitted one of those, changed the tuning pegs for locking ones, fitted Seymour Duncan pickups, and I've used it ever since. And every time I get hold of a new Fender, well, a newish Fender rather than a vintage one, I do the same thing now. I put a Kayla on it and put some Seymour Duncans, and because it holds, it's true. It's the one I've been using since the mid 80s all the way through to 40 years. So you'll see it in pictures or any live video. Because I didn't abuse it, but because it was a Japanese Fender and it didn't cost a lot of money in the early days, you start to think of it as something. Well, if you chip a bit of paint off, that doesn't matter so much. And then all of a sudden you realize you've worn a whole section of where your arm's been going. So what my guitar guy did, he chipped a bit more off, so it now looks like it's got this bit of wood showing through.
Lovely.
Honestly, it's a very I think a lot of people now recognize that guitar. So as I say, if you want to go on our Facebook or on our website, you'll see pictures of it, and that's the one that I travel with. I've got guitars left in quite a few territories and amplifiers, so that when I go there, at least I'm going to sound similar or the same.
Now I've got to go back to that first guitar. So you had enough left for the sandwich. Tell me that wouldn't have been the best sandwich you'd ever tasted after making sure you'd save that money.
In fact, I think we shared the sandwich because even though we'd said that we need that fiver, I think we needed a bit more than that fiver to get home. But it was certainly enough for the two of us to sit on that platform waiting for the train to really enjoy them. And my brother's a musician as well, and he remembers things more than I do, because every time we have a chat, he brings something else up. I go, oh God, I'd forgotten about that.
It's amazing. Any more plans to do stuff with Suzi?
Yes, she. When Don and I, Don from Slade and I, weren't doing that much. When I say not doing that much, pre-pandemic, we said, well, do you want to do another QSP? And Suzi was, well, as she always is, I suppose, hellishly busy. She was doing things, a duet with somebody. She was doing tours. She was, and she said, maybe next year. And of course, the pandemic hit. The world stopped. And then we all started to rebuild. A few things that the pandemic did was it made everybody think, and I think that's not been a bad thing. But I don't know whether there was something in COVID, but it seems to have put certain people who run countries on a war footing.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering whether there was something related to that, or whether it's just, everybody wanting to go back to the 1940s. I find the whole thing crazy.
It is.
There were things on my list. Yeah, I'd like to go and visit there. But, I'd rather stay at home and come to territories that understand us, like Australia, New Zealand, or Europe, or I'm not even so sure whether I would enjoy an American tour anymore. I think it's a strange brew out there.
Understand. It's like two kids in a sandpit, that country.
Yeah. I love the Frankie Goes to Hollywood video of two tribes.
Yep.
When you had the guy who looked like was it Ronald Reagan versus Gorbachev or something?
Yes.
And they're having a fight in a sandpit, basically.
Yep. That's all it is. And thankfully, the rest of us only give a toss about waking up the next day and taking a breath and having a good time.
Exactly.
Now, Andy,
and the occasional beer.
Well, I'm not a beer drinker, but I'll happily watch someone else drink a beer.
Yeah. Well, I have to agree with you. As I've got older, alcohol is not. I enjoy a beer.
Yep.
But the actual alcohol in it does something here. I get a bit red, and so it will be one, and sometimes it's one with a bit of lemonade in it, mate.
Perfect. Now you're chock full of interviews again tonight or today for you. So before I let you go, let everyone here know what they're going to see in November.
I think the lineup that I've got with Sweet right now is, and I've said this once or twice before, but not with such vehemence. I think anybody who saw the original band will be surprised, because I actually think this is on that level. We've got a unit where all the voices are right. Because they were character voices in the original band. And that's what we've got again. We've got you can hear the different voices. It's not just I don't mean bland, but it's not just that backing vocal, that American.
It's not just a wall of sound.
Yeah, and we've got guys who we brought a little bit of technology instead of a keyboard doing things, and instead of the guy out front doing things. We have a drummer with a pad now.
Yep.
So some of those sound effects, like explosions and the cash register in action and things like this, they're all kind of triggered from there, which has simplified a lot of things. And as you say, it's then absolutely live.
Yeah. Excellent.
And if the drummer hasn't got timing. Then the sound effect is not in the right place, is it?
Hey, it's still a live show if he misses.
Exactly. But other than that, you won't see a lot of movement from me. None of the old aerial kicks, because sometimes I have a need to stand still rather than start wandering around the stage. I'm not quite Biden. But I can see it coming in about 5 years' time if I'm still here.
You'll let your fingers do the talking.
Exactly.
Well, from one Andrew to another, I will see you in November.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See you then. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Cheers, man.